Flu season rolls around. It's time to get another flu vaccine. You've gotten dozens before and you've had no issues. This time, though, after the vaccination, you notice that your shoulder hurts a little bit more than it used to. The pain, where you're expecting it to go away after 1 to 2 days, has persisted. And now it's been a week, maybe 2 weeks, maybe a month, and your pain's getting worse. You're starting to have range of motion issues or strength issues. You can't use your arm the same way you did before the vaccination. You're starting to wonder whether the vaccine may have caused some sort of shoulder issue or shoulder injury. What you might be experiencing is something we call SIRVA, or shoulder injury related to vaccine administration. So in this video, I'm going to talk about SIRVA. I'm going to talk about the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. But if you believe that you're experiencing any of these symptoms that I'm talking about, it's important that you go see a medical provider as soon as possible. That's who's going to be able to diagnose you and who's going to recommend the right treatment for you. So first, what is SIRVA? SIRVA stands for shoulder injury related to vaccine administration. SIRVA happens when somebody receives an intramuscular vaccine into their shoulder, and the injection itself causes inflammation of the tendons, ligaments, or bursa in that shoulder joint. So instead of being properly administered into the deltoid muscle, SIRVA happens when the vaccine is administered into the shoulder joint. So what are the signs of SIRVA? You're going to have pain in your shoulder, either immediately following the vaccination, but at least within the first couple of days of the vaccine. And instead of subsiding or going away, that pain is going to persist, and it's likely going to get worse. And it may become associated with range of motion issues, decreased strength, and things like that. So it's important, if you're experiencing those symptoms, to try and get to the doctor as soon as you can. The doctor that you go see, you're going to explain to him or her what happened, that your pain started with the vaccination. They're going to do an exam of your shoulder. They may arrive at a diagnosis. They may not arrive at a diagnosis of SIRVA, because SIRVA technically isn't a diagnosis. More often, we see doctors diagnose things like bursitis or tendonitis, adhesive capsulitis or frozen shoulder, rotator cuff injuries, or impingement syndrome. Any of these can be associated with SIRVA, because SIRVA, again, is just inflammation of your shoulder joint. As far as treatment, the doctor may start out with some sort of conservative treatment, like anti-inflammatory medications or pain medications, physical therapy, cortisone injections. And a lot of times these treatment methods work to resolve somebody who has SIRVA, resolve their symptoms. Other times, when those conservative methods fail or don't resolve your symptoms, surgery is the other option. No matter what, if you're experiencing these symptoms following a vaccination, it's really important that you go see a doctor as soon as you can. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program in the context of a SIRVA claim. How do you know if you have a good SIRVA case? Well, first, your symptoms had to have started when you received the vaccination, and the vaccine that you received has to be covered by the program. Typically, we need to prove that your symptoms started within 48 hours of receiving that vaccination. Now, that doesn't mean that you need some sort of medical documentation or proof that you went to the doctor within those 48 hours. But a general rule of thumb would be, the closer in time to the vaccination that we have some sort of medical records showing it's what you're attributing your symptoms to, the better off we're going to be establishing that. Secondly, your symptoms have to persist for at least 6 months to be eligible to even file a claim in the program. So that doesn't mean you have to be in excruciating pain for 6 months, but you need some level of symptoms or residual issues after the vaccination, even with treatment, for at least 6 months to be able to file the case. A couple other requirements for the program specifically would be that you have to have received your vaccine in the United States with very limited exceptions. And you need to file your case within 3 years of the onset of your vaccine injury. In the context of a SIRVA claim, that's going to be around 3 years from the date of your vaccine. So what can you expect when you pick up the phone and call an attorney? You think you may have a SIRVA case. You want to know what the next steps are. So first, you have to call an attorney. The program has some very specific rules. It's good to have an attorney who knows how to navigate those rules and knows how to put your best case forward. And he or she is going to know how to value your claim, what some of the issues are going to be that you're going to face from the government. The best part of all of it is that it's free. The program covers all attorney's fees and costs. You're never going to be responsible for any attorney's fees, any attorney expenses during the entirety of your claim. So let's say you've taken that step, you've retained an attorney, you're going to be put through some sort of intake process. What's sort of unique about the vaccine injury compensation program is that a lot of the work on your case is going to be done up front. What the program prefers, when you file a petition, is that you also file all your evidence. So you're going to file all your medical records, you're going to file an affidavit, you're going to get any evidence you think is relevant to your claim, you're going to file when you file the case. So there's no discovery process, in this program. It's up to you to gather all of the records that's going to prove that you're entitled to compensation. So that's what's going to be happening after you retain an attorney. Your attorney is going to gather all of that pertinent information, all of the medical records, prepare everything, the petition, the exhibits, the affidavit, and file it all electronically with the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. Once everything's been filed, then the government will initiate its review. So when I say government, I mean the Department of Health and Human Services, who is represented by an attorney from the Department of Justice. They are going to review your petition. They're going to review all of the medical records. And in limited circumstances, they may even concede that you have a valid SIRVA claim. They may look at your records and see that you meet all the criteria for a table SIRVA claim. You meet the definition. There are no issues with entitlement, and they'll just concede the case. More often, what they're doing is searching for a reason to dispute your case. So they're looking through your medical records. They're trying to find a reason that you don't meet criteria A, B, C, or D, and then they can dispute the case. Even if they dispute the case, there are ways to resolve that case through some sort of settlement or through litigation if necessary. So no matter how your case ends up being resolved, either conceded through some sort of settlement or having to be litigated through the Court of Claims, the damages that are going to be available to you or compensation includes pain and suffering, out-of-pocket medical expenses, and any lost wages or earnings. Out-of-pocket medical expenses is going to be limited to anything that's not covered by insurance or some other means. So anything that you actually had to pay out of pocket is eligible to be reimbursed. Same thing with lost wages or earnings. So if you had to miss time from work because of the injury and you didn't get any sort of disability insurance or other leave that covered your wages while you were out, then you may be eligible to recover that as well. Pain and suffering is probably the most subjective part of the value of your case. Really, it comes down to how severe your injury was, the treatment that was required, the duration of your symptoms, the impact that it has on your life. All of these things factor into what your pain and suffering is, and that's why another good reason to have an attorney with you who is going to be familiar with the value of these claims and how to achieve the best possible outcome for you. You want to learn more about SIRVA and the VICP? Well, we wrote a book about it. If you want to get a free copy, just text us SIRVA to 312-847-2428 and we'll ship one to you. If you believe you have SIRVA, I would invite you to give us a call at 312-578-9501 for a free consultation. And if you meet certain criteria, you may be eligible for compensation through the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program.